the People Strategy Forum. And today's conversation is one I've been looking forward to for a while. We've been talking about AI and the reality of modern work. It's not the headline version, it's a version that's actually happening inside your inbox, your shared mailboxes, your approval chains. And my guest is David Dean, the author of The Inbox Between Us. And David has spent 18 years inside complex enterprises in healthcare, finance, and regulated industries, watching strategies collide with reality. And he's built the systems, he's led the teams, and he's cleaned up initiatives that looked flawless in planning, but fractured on impact. What he's learned is not about technology, it's more about behavior. And this conversation matters because the AI question has shifted. It is no longer what your organization will do to adopt AI. It's whether your organization is honest enough to see what AI is actually showing it. So let's get started. Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate having me, Sam.
Yeah, so David, as we kind of get into the concept here of talking about AI and so forth, the first thing I'd like to do is kind of introduce you to the audience. And so can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today and you currently work with?
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to build my career around productivity knowledge sources, whether that is, from, I was that engineer that helped you in my earlier career to supporting the back-end security services relating to those productivity. But I naturally grew into where less about the infrastructure and security and more about what value it ultimately brings to your organization and more about the little value. And with anything, with any type of business process, with any type of change, it's all these little abilities that people do every day lead up to kind of the bigger reality on how everyone does their jobs. And so as I moved into building and designing solutions, moving into larger enterprise initiatives on strategic rollouts, business value, change management around these different types of technologies, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of front level teams on why they do the things that they do every day for years at this point. Tens of thousands of solutions across many different enterprises with it. And it provided me a different perspective from a lot of different individuals out there when it comes to reality and practicality. I kind of lived and breathed through the pains and challenges that everyone had to do to basically to do the jobs every day. Why did you create this? Why do you use this? What are you thinking in regards to using this every day? How do you feel about this? And through that self-discovery across multiple different business units, multiple different opportunities, now AI has entered the workforce. It's coming in. And I talk about AI as being kind of this third presence. And a lot of people just still didn't understand what that really means. And honestly, they still don't, right now. Everyone's still figuring everything out on what this change, this culture change is happening. And what I felt like is someone needed to write a message to talk as more of a reality on like, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. It's okay to slow down. Let's understand the right mindset that is needed in order to truly understand what value AI is going to have to me and to an organization.
Okay, so you're saying that you're really investigating what work actually gets done and then how we can use AI to improve things or to help us with that. So what was your discovery when in working with organizations? What really defines how AI is getting done?
So right now there's a lot of capability and there's a lot of flashiness being put out, like, oh, I can do all these amazing things out there to do that. And I'm not discrediting that there aren't amazing things that you can do with this. The challenge is like, how can those amazing things be helpful to me, with it? A lot of times things are being assumed, but so people are designing systems, approaching different things based on how things are documented, how the perceived avenue on how things actually get done and work. What I wanted to have more of a conversation about what is the reality of it. So the undocumented behavior with it. So I talk about kind of two systems from an organizational standpoint. There's the documented one, and then there's the undocumented one. And that undocumented one is where that opportunity is to reveal how to really actually take advantage of AI and self-discover.
Okay. And then was that, and how did you learn about the undocumented work? Where did that information come from?
So a lot of it comes just from my own personal observations, but a lot of times it came from the different business members I worked with every day through all the years of my career. As I connected with them and I was building a solution or overcoming a problem, I'd be like, why did you create this? This artifact. And I'm not talking about just like, well, I need to do business process A, for this. And I was like, no. What are you thinking? What drove you to create this? Why do you keep maintaining this around it? Those dynamics matter because a lot of times these are like, I still need to do my job. I need to get things done. These are the tools that are available to me. I'm going to make that happen. And, sometimes they don't have tools. Sometimes they don't have funding. There's all different kinds of inputs and dependent outputs. And people just still need to do their jobs with it. And that's one thing I don't really like the term shadow IT or shadow AI, because while there is merit from a security standpoint on that, the deeply human aspect is that term forgets why those are created, why those are established. People are doing this to survive in their jobs because there's an expectation and they're utilizing what's available to them to meet that expectation.
So the thought is let's listen to this particular deliverable. Let's look into the workflow that supports it and break that workflow down to see if it really makes sense to continue doing it that way. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And the challenge, though, is like some of these are documented, some of them are never ever documented, but some of these are documented. And while those documented ones make sense to a degree, there's a lot of things that go into that documented that are not documented. And where is there opportunity to understand that? Because if AI is here to mimic human behavior, then make it human. That's the whole reason why AI is there, is to industrialize human behavior in different ways. So, but it seems like a lot of times when people are designing solution or approach it, they're forgetting the human part, the human dynamics, the organizational workplace dynamics with that. And so what I talk about is that undocumented behavior and record is documented somewhere. And that's kind of what my book is to reveal, is that there's this inbox. And email is going to be around for many years, even 50 years from now. So the question is where is that undocumented behavior documented? It's documented in our emails, our chat messages, our meeting transcripts. All of our workplace dynamics are stored in there. And before you approach AI, you should self-discover those workplace dynamics to understand those dynamics, because sometimes it may not even be a solution. It may not even need to be AI to solve the issue or problem. It may just be a conversation with someone. Someone just doesn't understand something with it. So let's approach that before we do any kind of major investment in a solution. Sometimes it does reveal we need a better streamlined process relating to it. So how can we use these dynamics to help self-discover?
Okay, and so what is the most common or most reoccurring example you can give me of that? I mean, what do you see that happens most often with businesses?
Yeah, so probably one of the most common business processes in any organization, no matter how small or how big, is, I'll just say, the approval process. Mm-hmm. Why does it take so long for something to get approved? Usually something is sent in an email or even an automated process with it. So why is that? Well, a lot of times those approval processes, there's dynamics, back and forth. People are emailing back and forth. People are conversing back and forth relating to that. What do those conversations tell us about this, around it? What does that person's calendar tell us about that? That person may be booked for, 8 hours a day for the next, 45 4 weeks. That's why things are not getting approved with it. So maybe we need to change our business process. Maybe we need to change the approver. Maybe we need to give less work to that individual so they have opportunities to improve, with that. That's the self-discovery, and that's the true value of AI, is to self-discover and realize that value. Then you can build solutions around it if needed. But sometimes the solutions, it's still a people process that may need to accomplish that. So don't put your money where you don't necessarily need to put your money if you can just solve the problem between the human connections that we have.
Okay. And so you mentioned that a lot of this information is kind of hidden in our inboxes, they're hidden in our text messages, chats, and so forth. So how can we leverage AI to really unfold this? I mean, is it really a human interview process, or do you use AI to kind of go through all that data?
So it's the question is, first of all, is curiosity. So like what I usually recommend from an organizational process, like pick an organizational process that everyone has a shared problem with. It's not just you. It's other people have a challenge with this. And you have copies of all of those dynamics within your email, because you're copied, you're CC'd, relating to these, you're part of that conversation. Start asking questions around that dynamic, because it's not just one question then you're done. It's usually a chain of questions in order to gain those insights with it. And I'm not trying to, you can get all kinds of insights, the more sophisticated prompting and that kind of stuff with it, but you don't necessarily need to get to that far with it, because you need just enough to have the right conversation with people to kind of identify and create that opportunity with it. So from a business process standpoint, identify a pain point in which shared people, and they can ask questions around that. So with the approval process is, what are they discussing relating to this approval process? What other conversations is this person involved with over this period of time, keeping them from being able to potentially approve this that I may have access to around it? That's going to create some insights, because I don't know how they do their jobs every day. I don't know their dynamics and their struggles and challenges with it. So there's a lot of information that can be potentially revealed. Now, that's more of that business process standpoint. But here's also an opportunity from a self-realization standpoint. It's like, where does AI have an opportunity for us to discover how I can improve the way the things that I do? And you are part of the system. So you have all this knowledge, you have all this accumulation, you have all this experience around it. The one thing that you can do is document it. Well, some people don't type fast, some people don't, can easily put things together. Well, utilize AI as an advantage. So almost everyone has a mobile device or some kind of dictation device, with their computer. Why don't you just start writing it out? Like, as you said, self-interviewing. Tell me how I do my job. I want to tell the machine how I do my job every day. Just start writing all that stuff out. Then throw that into AI to help organize it, and then start asking questions. Where is their opportunity? What is their opportunity to self-realize what I do every day? What is their opportunity where I could potentially improve, in the things that I do? How can I better communicate, with this? Those different types of dynamics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I've done with my team is that in trying to redefine workflows, like in using AI, for instance, is to kind of have a recorded session similar to what we're doing right now. And so It's like, I go, okay, let's go through the process, describe here's the objective, and then they'll go through, okay, the first step I do this, and then I go, okay, then what's next after that? And then who else do you work with? And then so through all of that and recording that through the system, I can use AI to kind of create that SOP or a process. Is that what you're talking about there, David?
So yeah, and that's part of it, the transcript on that, but that is a controlled session with an ultimate goal. What I'm also talking about is outside of that, so there's all these subsequent meetings relating to a process that happens, whether that's, quick touch bases, or you have formal business meetings. That subject comes up, people discuss the dynamics, people discuss, challenges, frustrations, or successes relating to that. That's also done in email as well, and even the chat messages with that. So that is one set of evidence with that. But then that real human dynamics, those real kind of intimate challenges or problems are more of that organic space. And that organic space can tell you a lot of different things around it, including like, you may have workplace dynamic challenges relating to it. You may see two people that are at odds in regards to a particular subject or particular topic relating to that. Maybe it's like, as a leader, it's like, I need to go have a conversation and work these things out because maybe that can address our business process, more formally with that. So those hidden dynamics, if used from a lens where it's to be proactive and to help the organization succeed and help them succeed, can be a real advantage to you.
Okay, great. Now, one thing, David, I'd like to return to something that you said earlier in the conversation. You said that you describe AI as a third voice between a person and their work. So you mentioned that a lot of leaders have a hard time understanding what that means. So can you dive into details around that concept?
So what I like to think about with AI is it's a third presence. And you have to develop a relationship with AI, with it, because a lot of times where AI comes into play is that it's an assistant in many different ways. So if you think about, what if you hired a duplicate of you, but they were like front end entry level, highly capable type of individual, but how are you going to cultivate that individual to basically eventually be you and work in the dynamics that you work and how you think and how you do these different types of things? That's all relationship building. Now, it's only going to have a certain set of knowledge, a certain set of capabilities, but you have to cultivate it. And it relies on you to help it understand and help how it can provide value. So you think about the dynamics and teaching like a junior coworker on how to do these different things. Initially it doesn't understand, but over time it will understand kind of some of the dynamics, some of the behaviors, some of the signals that you do. You feed it information with that. So it's really a relationship, because the idea when it comes to AI is that it's eventually, when we get to that point, we're not at that point yet, but we'll eventually get to that point, it's a symbiotic relationship. AI is going to rely on humans in order to succeed in everyday life, and it's also, users are going to rely on AI in a lot of circumstances, not all, but a lot of circumstances, to succeed as well in that regard. And it's going to be kind of a tightly coupled relationship with it in the long run. It's going to take some time to get to that point with it, but ultimately that's what it comes down to. And so the only way to make a relationship work is you have this kind of triangle of a relationship. There's you to AI, and there's AI to your organization. You all have to kind of figure out what that relationship dynamic is going to be and what that ultimately means, because the relationship between AI and the organization and to you and to AI is going to be different, and it's also going to be aligned. So how do you manage that? Like, how do you manage that relationship dynamic? And if you think about it in people terms rather than technical and systematic terms, it makes a lot more sense, and people are able to connect to it better if they think through human dynamics.
Okay, and when you say thinking about it through human dynamics, you're to kind of put the AI in a human's shoes. Is that what you're saying? Kind of think of it as another.
Yeah, as another coworker. Now, it's never going to be human, so you have to understand its limitations with it. The one thing this is why humans matter, and they will always matter, is humans understand the concept of lived experience and lived consequence with it. And AI will never understand that, like in the long run, from a decision and accountability and judgment standpoint with it. And to a certain extent, even someone entry level, they are not going to understand the long downstream aspect until they're cultivated into the person you are today with all of that lived experience and knowledge with that. But that aspect, but you'll be able to get it signals and things to understand where it can assist in some of those areas. But your judgment, your accountability still will always matter in there. And that's why we hire people. That's why people are accountable and responsible. That's why we have job descriptions and people with that. So it's really a tool to help around that, but that's why people will always still matter. So the idea is now you have a cultivation of these coworkers that can help in many different ways, that are specified in certain ways, in certain manners with it, that are an extension of you. They're also an extension of the company. But your human dynamics and the workplace dynamics are going to interact with that. So that's kind of the mindset to think about when applying that. But it's going to you're going to feed it information. It's going to have access to the way you think. If you add your behavioral dynamics to it, you're going to provide additional context to that. It's going to try and help you and extend you, but it still won't replace you.
Okay. And I understand that piece now. And a lot of times when you're talking in your book, you use the mirror metaphor, and it's really central to your work. AI does not invent bias; it reflects what's already there. So, what's the most uncomfortable thing leaders see the first time they hold that mirror up?
So, the one thing that when I talk about self-realization and you as an individual is that using all of your workplace dynamic information, your behavioral record, asking questions, can you build a personality profile of yourself? Like, how does AI essentially read you and read your dynamics with it? Then you can also ask the question, now, how would other people perceive these dynamics? My coworkers, my leaders, around some of these different types of things. That is very revealing in regards to, is there an opportunity to improve? Is this just who I am? Is this my personality with it? Now, it's only getting one part of the equation, which is I'm getting the documented stuff that has been documented in these kinds of different data sources. You still have your understanding and knowledge and relationship building and other people. That's not a part of the equation. So you're only ever getting part of the story. But the goal is not to truly build this entire, it's not going to understand everything, but it's going to give you just enough information to point to things that allow you to hone in on. To okay, so let me dive into this dynamic. Let me look into this. What else can I understand? What else can I learn from this? And for example, communication style. How do I communicate with people? How am I perceived on how I communicate with people with this? Because sometimes it can come across negative, even though I'm not trying to be negative with it. Sometimes it could come across nonchalant or overly positive, or those types of things with it. Maybe I need to be more real in regards to around it. And sometimes that's different for different people. If you think about, as a leader, you learn to talk to different, individual that's more analytical, an individual is more directive, someone who's more amiable. You change your language in that regard. And so can that provide insight to me as well, so I can better communicate with these different individuals with this? So I talk about that human dynamic a lot, but even as an individual contributor, how can I communicate to my leadership more efficiently so they can better understand their goals, their values, their opportunities with what I'm trying to convey with them? And so all of those dynamics is all available in the inbox, this behavioral record in this space.
Okay. And I think that's, tell me if I'm wrong, but in your book you're mentioning, you bring up the old adage of garbage in, garbage out, and you replace that with behavior in, behavior out. Is that kind of what you mean, is understanding behavior, understanding our personal behavior and how we communicate with others, and ensuring that we train artificial intelligence on that initiative, or on those details?
Yeah, so because from the documented system, that doesn't factor, that factors in controlled steps that everyone expects everyone to do. And for the most part, for a lot of things, they do that, but it doesn't capture the hidden steps, the hidden dynamics, the hidden conversations that need to happen in order for that step to flourish. So if we can have AI truly understand human and organizational dynamics as an input, AI can work better for us to understand that. But that also provides bias influence. Because, and I talk about this a lot in the book, is definitions. Definitions are a critical, key, important aspect, because my definition of something, when it comes to any kind of dynamic, and the definition of another individual may be completely different, even though we're talking about the same thing with it. So that bias comes into play to those definitions. So it's important to kind of, when you start this avenue, you have to accept that there's going to be a bias. So if you can get agreed upon shared definition around when you're introducing human dynamics into an AI business process and use these human dynamics, there's that kind of a mutual agreement. And so then that can better enhance how AI can provide value to you, is that you have additional context. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not, with it. But if you design AI in such a way where you account for that, where you account for the human element of the things that we do well as humans as a part of this, and design a solution that way, or design a business process that way, it's just going to be that better. You're going to have a much longer and faster advantage on capitalizing on AI for your organization or for yourself.
Okay. So I mean, we've been talking a lot about your book, and I want to make sure that we make this crystal clear for our listeners here. And when you wrote the book, who is the audience that you're really writing for? Who should read your book?
So I was going for like the non-technical business leader, because a lot is changing. AI is, all kinds of stuff is coming out. There's a lot of stuff being advertised, a lot of opportunities, a lot of successes and concerns around that. And, the non-technical business user, to some extent, is being thrown into this. And when I was last year, and as I was working with different business leaders, they were concerned. There's a lot of concern. I don't know what this means. I don't understand how this is going to plug in. I understand from a technical opportunity, but I don't understand what is changing, on how my workplace is changing. I'm scared. I'm concerned. I don't know where to get started. I don't know the way to think. And with that, I felt like there wasn't enough message in the workplace dynamics being written there. And so what I wanted to have is a real conversation with business leaders and individual contributors out there, saying, this is what this means. This is why you are important. This is why you are valued as a human. This is AI entering the workplace. This is ultimately what it means. This is why you still matter. This is where AI is going to help. This is how it's going to emerge, and this is how what change really looks like for an organization and for yourself. That was kind of the ultimate goal. Is, there are solutions relating to all the dynamics about this, but I think the very first thing is you have to recognize that you have a challenge and a problem in this dynamic first, and you need to recognize what that problem is and those dynamics are before you can actually truly take action. And that's really where the state of mind I'm trying to create for everyone and make it real. So I refer to myself as a business AI realist, because I want to make it real for everyone before they start diving into this journey.
Great. Well, thank you, David. Now, I know that you shared a release version of your book with me. Is it available now for leaders to purchase right now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's available on all major retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, across all the digital platforms out there. So that's all accessible with it. And so I'm working on getting an audiobook version of this here soon, but it's ready for print as well as ebook.
Great. Well, thank you so much. So, David, I know that I want listeners really to walk away with your central insight on this, is that AI it didn't invent the gap between how work is described and how it actually happens. It's just stopped letting everybody know that the gap is there. You need to use AI. We need to partner with AI and how to understand it effectively and find new ways to solve the future of work. And so thank you for bringing that to our leaders today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would like to leave off of with to everyone out there is, a lot of people don't get a chance to hear a thank you. So I want to say thank you to all the working people in the world. We appreciate everything that you do and everything that you provide. You matter, and you will still matter even 50 years from now in this AI changing world. Keep at it and keep providing the services that you provide, and thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, David. That's sweet. So once again, for our leaders out there, the book is titled An End Box Between Us. And so if this conversation has changed the way that you think about AI inside your organizations, I'd like you to do 3 things. First, ensure that you follow the People Strategy Forum so you don't miss out on what's coming next. And then, most importantly, share this episode with one leader who needs to hear it. And pick up David's book, an inbox between us, and it's available now. And then come back onto the podcast here, leave a comment, and let us know what you think about all that. But once again, I'm Sam Reeve, and I thank you for being here. We'll see you next week on the People Strategy Forum. All right, take care.